Thank you very much. Welcome to the Regional Transit Partnership meeting for Thursday, January.
That's my fault, sorry.
And my understanding is that we don't have anyone on Zoom that we need to vote to.
That is
let
correct.
into the meeting.
Yes.
So with that, we have lots of new faces at the table. Lots of new faces. And I would like to start, as we always do, with introductions. And as we introduce the new folks, if you all would please introduce yourselves to our group, take a few minutes to introduce yourselves. And Mike, can I put you on a spot here and ask you to start?
Ms. McKeel, after you've already used my name, I mean, it's too late to ask, right? Yeah.
Well, we're old friends, so.
I am Mike Murphy, and I'm the interim CEO at JAUNT. Have been familiar with the RTP for about as long as it's existed, I think, based on my previous career with the City of Charlottesville. And happy to be here serving JAUNT in the community in this transportation.
Welcome, we're delighted to have you here. Scott?
Hey everyone, I'm Scott Solsdorf. I'm the Director of Transportation and Parking for UVA. I think everybody knows Becca White, and I replaced her back in August. I think it was my second in-person meeting here, so nice to be back and nice to see you faces.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
My name is Lucas Ames. I serve for JAUNT as the urban representative, City of Charlottesville. We've been on the RTP for a couple terms now, and excited to be here.
I'm Tom Morgan. I'm the JAUNT rural representative. Live in Albemarle County.
Hi, I'm Katie Miller. I'm the state representative. I'm the program manager with TRT. And I'm glad that I was actually in person this time.
Welcome in person.
Yeah.
Because it's so much more personal to have you
Oh,
here.
yeah, definitely.
Rather than trying to figure out the Zoom. Okay.
Christine Jacobs, I'm the executive director here for Thomas Jackson.
Hi all, my name is Mike Pruitt. I'm the newly elected representative for the Scottsdale Ministerial District in Albemarle County. I ran on a platform that heavily focused on cost of living and housing issues, and I think an integral part of that has to be regional transportation solutions. So I was very excited to be able to get assignment to this board. So excited to join us.
We're thrilled to have you. Oh, and I do want to say that, to let people know, Garland let me know earlier this afternoon that he's about 15 minutes late. So I think he will be joining us. I'm Diane McKeel of Albemarle County, and
yeah, I'm Brian Kingston, member of Charlottesville City Council. I guess this is starting my third year on this board, and I think we're working with everyone here.
Good afternoon, everybody. Trevor Henry, Deputy County Executive at Albemarle County. I've been supporting RTP, non-voting member, but county administrative support since 2019-ish or so. I'm going to just skip to the back. Miss Ann Wall is here in attendance. Ann is our new Deputy County Executive. She started in December. She will be over portfolio, includes community development, facilities, and Parks and Rec. Comes from North Carolina, 30 years experience both in city and rural, UVA grad. I don't mean to take all your thunder, but as part of Ann's onboarding, we'll be transitioning my support of RTP to Ann because of a better alignment to both experience and portfolio. Ann?
Certainly. Good afternoon, everyone. As Trevor said, my name is Ann Wall, and I serve as Deputy County Executive in Albemarle County. I recently left Eastern North Carolina, where I worked more than 30 years in local government in Eastern North Carolina, and most recently served about 6.5 years as a city manager of Greenville, North Carolina, home to East Carolina University, a community of about 100,000 people. Very much like an area very, in some ways, very similar to Albemarle County, and in some ways, very different than Albemarle County. In my community, we had a fixed-base bus system. We worked with East Carolina University, which had a transit system, and our local hospital had a transit system as well. And our fourth partner in that equation was the county, which provided paratransit service. So I've had the opportunity to work with transit services in several different communities. Delighted to be in Albemarle County and be here today.
welcome.
Thank you.
I'm thrilled that you're here. And yes.
Hello, I'm Natalie Oshrin. It's Oshrin. I know everyone's probably wondering that. And I am, like Mike, new this year, but to Charlottesville City Council, and we ran on similar platforms of housing and transit, mobility, accessibility, and yeah, yep, that's part of it. Bikeability. I live downtown, near Mead Park, so nice for me to get around with my bike as much as possible. And I will be advocating for that, considering transit and development on a human scale, not necessarily using cars as the base unit, but people.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Thrilled to have
Happy to
you.
be here.
Yes.
Peter Thompson, I'm the chair of the Transportation Work Group of the Charlottesville Area Alliance and representing CAA as a non-voting member of the RTP.
I'm Peter Krebs from the Piedmont Environmental Council. I'm a land use, transportation, and healthy communities planner. And I too am a non-voting member of this board.
Sandy Shackelford, TJPDC staff, not a member of the committee.
Lucinda Shannon, TJPDC staff, and I'm your staff person for this committee.
And the person to contact if you have any questions about the meetings or anything. And Gretchen?
I am Gretchen Thomas. I'm the administrative assistant for TJPDC.
I can't see behind that. I think you're good. There you go.
Hi everyone, Sarah Pennington. I'm here for the rideshare program as a non-voting member, and that is a program that is housed out of the TJPDC that promotes transportation plan management.
Well, I look behind me. I have to check with everybody else. I think it's from the, we're good? All right. With that, do we have anyone who signed up for matters from the public? Oh, we haven't approved the agenda. I'm sorry. All right. With that, I will entertain a motion to approve our agenda.
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
All right. Approve the draft minutes that were, or actually go back to October the 26th, which we have not approved. Did anyone have any edits or comments or questions about the minutes? All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the minutes from October the 26th.
So.
All right, thank you, Scott. Is there a second?
Second.
I think I heard Brian first. All those in favor, please say yes.
Yes. Yes.
Yes.
Any abstentions? All right, then we have all those in favor, please say yes. I think we had the majority of people. Yes, all right. Matters from the public now, Sandy, or Lucinda.
If any member of the public would like to speak, please let me know. If you're online, you can raise your hand by looking in the bar at the bottom of your screen, and we will give you a time to speak. Nobody is, we have 3 people in the public and no one is raising their hand.
Sounds good. Then we'll go to the next item on the agenda is appointing a new vice chair. If you all, of course, some of you remember and some of you may not know, but Lloyd Smith was our vice chair. So we do need someone to serve in that role as vice chair. We will, if the bylaws were attached, if you all noticed, to the agenda, and the bylaws say that the chair and vice chair shall be elected from the membership, that is the voting membership of the partnership, and that with the election of officers, it takes place at the first meeting after July 1st. So Christina, I'm assuming that we will have another election. Whoever we vote for vice chair today, we will re-elect both the chair and vice chair again in after July 1st. Just so you know. So it's a short term. This is term.
Historically, the pattern has been to have chair, vice chair alternate between the city and the county.
Yes, to have the chair and the vice chair not from the same location, from jurisdiction. Yeah. So I will entertain.
Can you go over the responsibilities of the vice chair?
The vice chair serves, so obviously would run the meetings and serves in the absence of the chair. The vice chair also attends the pre-agenda meetings as they can. Because we do have a pre-agenda meeting before each meeting to look at the agenda with staff. And really,
Which is virtual.
it's virtual, yeah.
And you don't always have to be there. It's good if you can use the
Yeah.
vice chair, but the chair carries most of the water, actually staff carries most of the water.
Yeah, that's
Let's
right,
be clear.
that's right. Or if I'm missing anything else, just to make sure I'm not missing anything, so.
Brian's looking at me.
Yeah, I would leave, I would nominate Ms. Oshram from the city as vice chair.
Second.
And actually, it's interesting, what I learned just recently was that you don't need when you're making, nominations for chairs and vice chairs, according to, several of the attorneys I've talked to, you don't need a second, and I just learned that. But I would entertain if there are any other nominations from the floor. All right, then we have Natalie nominated. All those in favor,
Well,
please.
is Natalie, are you good with accepting?
She's grinning, so
Certainly, let's do it.
she didn't stop. So all those in favor of Natalie being vice chair, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? So we have a new vice chair. Thank you. Yes, absolutely.
Thanks, everybody.
All right, with that, Lucinda, we have the RTP orientation, and with all the new folks, it's perfect timing for some orientation. So I will turn it over to you, please.
Thank you. So this is the Regional Transit Partnership, and it started around 2016. The Planning District Commission re-examined the opportunities for a more regional approach for transit planning. In 2017, so they did a study. In 2017, they created the Regional Transit Partnership with a joint MOU, which is on the website. And then in 2018, the RTP developed a strategic plan, which is also on the website. Albemarle and Charlottesville funded the MOU in 2019, and then UVA joined us as a voting member in 2020. So I'm just going to go through a couple of our accomplishments. And I'm not going to read all of these. In the past couple of years, we conducted the Albemarle County expansion feasibility study, which led to MicroCat. We also secured a grant and did the Regional Transit Vision Plan, which kind of created a transit network for the entire region and a vision of what the community wants. And in this year, we finished the vision plan, and we started, based on recommendations from the vision plan, we started the regional transit governance study. And we just completed that in December. In our next February meeting, you'll have the last presentation from the consultant. We're working on, we also secured funding for a mobility management program to expand services, transit services for older adults and people with disabilities. And that's gonna kind of help also with the RTP's vision of kind of coordinating transportation and making one place for everybody to get their transit information. So hopefully as this program grows, we'll be able to have a website where everybody can go and find all the information about the different services. And I just wanted to go through the web pages with you. So I've been working on them. And they have a lot of information, and I think sometimes people don't know where to find the information. So let me see if oh, here it is. Okay. It's not sure. Oh, right. Thank you. Is it that one? I think it is. Yeah, it's not sure what's up. Okay. There we go.
That's
Yeah.
great.
Yeah. So I'm gonna start with our committee webpage. We have 2 pages. So the RTP committee webpage has the description and some of the core values. And then down below, there's the meeting schedule. And if you click on the month or the date that you have your meeting, the agenda is on here. You can download it as a PDF using that link. Or you can use it like this, and then there's links to different documents that you can use to go through the meeting. And then if you back up to the committee webpage, you can find all of the previous meeting notes here. So we have the videos, the agenda, and the minutes, the written minutes for the past 2 years. We have the committee members on here, and then some of the documents that I just mentioned that help lead to the RTP are down here too. So they're under the RTP documents. And there's like a 101 about the Regional Transit Partnership, the strategic plan, and the MOU, the founding study, and the bylaws. So those are all there if you are interested in them. And then if you have any questions, you can call me. I don't know, Dantha, if you have anything to add.
Well, you might just let them know, you sent out a packet before the meetings.
Yes.
So just let them know about that.
Yeah, so you will get a week before the meeting in your email, a packet which will have the agenda and then the supporting materials. So you don't have to go to the website to get all of this. It's, however you feel most comfortable doing it. Yeah, and then usually I attach the packet to the meeting invitation so that if you go to that meeting date, you can pull up the packet from your Outlook calendar too.
Are there any questions? I'll throw it open for questions in case anybody has any questions. Oh, there's a seat right here.
He's trying to sneak in.
And you might just take this opportunity to introduce yourself as we have that introductions and we have some new folks.
Garland, Garland, Shaw's area change.
All right.
Good to see you, Mike.
And just quickly, Garland, Mike Pruitt is the new Albemarle County representative, and Natalie is yes, you know Natalie. All right. With that, were there any questions about bylaws or schedules, process, anything like that? I don't see any. We just reviewed, Garland, what was the orientation part of the packet. So let me, with
Diana,
that.
I'm sorry to interrupt, if I waited too long for pause. Not only does the chair and vice chair usually switch between city and county, but in order to establish a quorum, both the member from the city and the county have to be present. So it's not just majority, but that both jurisdictions are present.
And that is something a little different, for this particular group. So in order to actually have a meeting where we can vote on it, we have to have someone from Albemarle, someone from Charlottesville.
And JAUNT.
And JAUNT that are voting members.
Yes.
Yeah, that's great.
Sarah, did you go through the transit planning webpage?
Did I forget that? I'm sorry.
Well, go right ahead and do that.
Yeah, let me pull that up.
Sure.
It's- So you can get to the transit planning webpage here, or from the homepage of the TJPDC website. So we have a regional transit planning webpage that has a lot of the recent studies. And so there's a link to the committee webpage, and then here's some of the studies that we recently did. The regional transit governance study we're just wrapping up, and that was to look at forming some type of an organization to bring in additional revenue and help with regional planning for transit. And Then we had the regional transit vision plan, which kind of created what we would like to do with the money that we would bring in from the governance study organization. We also did the Albemarle County Transit Expansion Study, which was the beginning of MicroCat. And the Regional Transit Coordinating Study is from, I added some of the older, more like important plans on here, just for people's reference. So in 2016, there was the Regional Transit Coordination Study, which is similar to the governance study that we just did. It kind of recommended that we form the RTP and continue working towards a transit authority. The, June 2008 was the Regional Transit Authority study. And then there was also a regional rail concept study that had proposed doing light rail up and down Route 29. So those are some of the studies that the TJPDC has been doing over the years.
Dan, could I ask you,
Sure.
were you part of the original, can you give a little history for some of the newer folks here, including me? Were you part of the original RTP, or
Yes, the RTP
when it was first formulated?
came about, and Christina can probably add to this too, but it came about because Albemarle County, to be honest with you, was concerned about not having a voice at the table regarding transit. And so we reached out to Cat and to Charlottesville and to the University of Virginia and said, we need a group getting together that can talk about how to improve transit in our area. And so the partnership was formed. And at that, when it was first formed, it was made up of Charlottesville and Albemarle and JAUNT. The University of Virginia, at the very beginning of the partnership, was a non-voting member. They later joined us as a voting member, which we were thrilled to have them decided to join us as a voting member. But the partnership was really formed around an effort to have some input from Albemarle into CAT, which is, of course, a city government department, and to try and improve transit in the urban area, the rural area, and have input from JAUNT, CAT, Albemarle County, and all of the players on how to improve transit in our area. And I know the community at times has thought, what in the world have those people down at the RTP even been doing or accomplishing? But when you look at what we've done in the years and the fact that we had a pandemic in the middle, which did slow us down a little bit, I think we've come a long ways. Right now, we're discussing an authority. What the authority would do is to actually give transit in this community some funding. Because that's the one thing we don't have, is we don't have real funding for transit. Christine, would you like to add anything else?
Sure, I can say in 2008, there is enabling legislation. So in 2008, there was an authority established in Virginia Code. However, that did not have any mechanism for funding in that legislation. And so that was the pause that was put on the regional authority, is because there was no funding coming in order to do anything actionable with that existing enabling legislation. And so that's why, again, in 2000, whatever it was, 19, the RHP was really intended to be an intermediary to get us back to the point where we're considering an authority and what it would take to get us there, and using this as the think tank, information sharing, coordination, thinking through what is it that we want to go and ask for, and if we go and ask for that funding, what exactly are we trying to do with it, that we needed to establish that with this group of all of the stakeholders together. So that's all I would add, is that there is an authority on the books. It just has not been utilized and does not have funding yet. And that's what we would be going for, is amendments to existing authority and or a request for.
And so I would add that at some point, once we've determined, right now we're looking at the governance model. And the consultants will be coming back to us next month with the recommendations from their work with the partnership on what that governance model would look like for an authority. And there may be that we will need to go to the legislature at some point, Christina, and ask for some tweaks to the legislation that we received in 2008. We're not sure right now exactly what those might be. So that will be part of our discussion as well. So we're open for questions. All right, sounds good. All right, well with that, our next agenda item is our proposed meeting schedule, and we will need to take a vote on this. And you all have the packet, so I guess you had an opportunity to look at the dates. The only, the months that are a little different, we normally cancel our November meeting and our December meeting because they fall so close to Thanksgiving and Christmas, and we split the difference. So that would place our December meeting at December the 12th. It's what we would normally do to avoid the holidays.
We usually skip July, right?
We have often canceled July, yes, and I know the staff doesn't have July on. Albemarle County very often cancels meetings in July. And it used to be that the city canceled meetings in July or August, but I don't even remember exactly. So our culture has been to let people go on vacations and to give some break time. And so you'll see that January, February, March, April, May, June, August, September, October, and then December. Now, I don't know if anyone has any concerns about any of those dates. With that though, if those dates work, I would entertain a motion to approve the 2024 meeting schedule.
So moved.
Thank you, Mike. And is there a second? Second. Okay, Natalie, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. All right. With that, transit provider updates. Charmaine is not here. She's not behind me, is she? No, Charmaine's not here from Albemarle County Schools. So Kendall, we would have moved to Kendall. But we will ask Scott to give us an update.
Sure, yeah, thank you. Don't have a whole lot of an update for this month, other than to say that obviously semester is resumed, so buses are running back on a full academic schedule. Some of the things that I think we reported last month, or maybe our staffing is going really well. Our drivers, we've been getting some new student drivers and continuing to train, so we've actually added another bus onto one of our academic routes and even shortened the headways at the start of this semester. The Gold Line, which pretty much runs most of the day, and a lot of students from North Grounds use that as the central route. So we're happy about that, excited about that. The other big piece of information I wanted to pass out to the group that Mike and I were briefly talking about beforehand is we issued an RFP, I think after our October meeting, but we're now in the selection process to look at our fixed route tracking software. For those of you that know, we use Transloc to track our buses, and we also use Transloc in the evening for our on-demand service. And so we're just looking to see what's out there. I came and asked some questions when I started, like what are the options, what are the services, and our contract with Transloc is ending, and so we put it out to bid. So we're evaluating where we'll land, and that's about all I can say at this point, because I think that the process is closed and we haven't started the evaluations yet. So yes, no.
Is the service fine and you're just looking to see what else is out there, or have there been problems with it?
We're always looking for improvements. There are some, well, I'll share the one big thing that we don't like about it, and that is that right now, if we go to make a change to a route for whatever reason, we need Transloc to publish that for us, and that is a real challenge. It slows it down. You know, if we want to make, if construction impact, you know, an emergency, anything that we need to reroute, we need to get them to post it. That's one issue that seems really slow in their roadmap of improvements.
So One of the things that this group has talked about a lot is to have everything for the user under an umbrella so that the users don't have to go, if they're moving from CAT to UTS, whatever it might be, that there's not a disconnect for the user, seamless. So I guess my question would be, how is what UTS currently using and what you all are looking at, is there a way that those can be at least blended so that the users don't have to go separately to all these different apps? Because that is a barrier, it's a real barrier for people who want to ride transit.
It is a challenge.
So, I don't want to put Mike on the spot, but I believe JAUNT put out an RFP to study that exact issue. I'm not sure where it is. But I would say, that is appealing to me, so our users would be able to have one platform. The question becomes, when we write the solicitation, does it have the language in it that will allow us to piggyback the language? And if it's not in there, and we are FTA funded, so is Mike, so the language has to be, the FTA language has to be in it. It does complicate it for others who don't take FTA funding. So that has been some of the barriers in the past.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the gold standard, right, is the idea that all three can be procured the same, and also recognizing that also is a bit of a mountain. And so I just encourage, as you're looking, or as we look, or whoever looks, to consider interoperability as the main function, because we may not, if we're not on the same platform, so they can talk to one another, as a core requirement, it might solve some of these problems of integrating different platforms. So I think interoperability has to be a key component of the solicitation, for sure, because it may be hard to get everyone on the same.
And I don't think the anticipation was that everybody was going to be on the same, but the issue is for the user, they shouldn't have to see the challenge of going to different apps. Right.
I was just going to say, my memory of being a past transit user is that it does not currently have, I think it's commercial format, this kind of thing. I want to confirm if that's correct, right? You load your profile specifically to yours. That's not what it is. You're at state.
And we're getting out of my knowledge of the technical interactions, but my understanding is Google Transit is one that if the files are set up correctly, that can then be shared and visible. I know that UTS routes are currently not in the format that they would need to be for them to be visible on Google Transit. There's other third-party apps, the one that I'm thinking off the top of my head is one, I think it's just called Transit, that integrates all that information if it's in a format that is multi-linked, I guess is the way to say it.
So, really what you want is you want in our model, we need to have our GTFS feed, be able to load up into, we get it to this open source, right? So they see our data. We have a problem with our software too, it's always an issue. There are software packages out there that are really robust, but they're really expensive. For a small transit agency, that's the challenge. We want something that can help all of us, but we're talking millions of dollars for even for a small transit agency like this. They don't make it exception just because you have 40 buses.
So, I was curious about this before we even touched on this. So we're talking about COTS, those commercial off-the-shelf products that are hopefully interoperable between the agencies, but it's, I heard that golden word, open source, in what you just said. Is there an open source model that could accomplish
We
this?
give our GTFS feed, that's the piece that's open, so we give it to Google, and they upload it on their system. That piece is open to anybody who can pull our GTFS feed. The challenge is when the software that we buy is proprietary. So what you see on your phone is proprietary. The feed, though, is not.
Mike, you
Yeah, I
want
would
to say
just
something?
contribute that we have a couple different systems, as we figure out, we're piggybacking on Transload, for the, curb to curb, we're using something called Trapeze. We are engaged in a number of different studies right now, and I can confirm that it is one of the concepts, for sure, even coming from the vendors, this approach of, many providers, one access point. And so, I'll just say, early on, we're talking about that. I'm not sure about, I think Garland's bringing up a key procurement issue for sure, both in cost and language. And I would also say that, as we look at our options, what had been suggested is, you've already put out a provider who may have pieces of the solution with micro cap, right? And so, question is, would we all migrate to that, or would you need to migrate again, and then we'd all have to do something different? I mean, there's lots of operational level questions to be raised.
And to Natalie's question earlier about, is there any problem with Transload? One of the benefits of Transload at UVA right now is when we switch to our on-demand service at night, when we say Friday, I still say that because a lot of people think that it's on-demand, but it's what we used to be called Safe Ride. That is currently all in Transload, so it's, flip over inside the app to on-demand, and, so students and faculty that may ride their buses during the day are familiar with it at night. So it's kind of the same problem we're trying to solve at the RTP level that we have institutionally with those two types of service. That's not we didn't make that a requirement because we felt that that would restrict us too much if we said all providers have to be able to do both, because frankly, some are really good in fixed route only and can't handle the dispatching. That's the real challenge, is the dispatching on the on-demand services.
So we don't want to lose this piece though for our, I'm just saying, for our riders to have a seamless experience. And so I think all of us are nodding our heads for the providers to somehow or another get together and see as we go through this process. And maybe, I don't know enough about what you got apps to say that maybe, Christine, as we look at the authority, I don't know if that would be something that could certainly be worked out through the idea of the authority, or at least be a discussion at the table, right? Or would that be too late? I'm just not sure.
Yeah, I have just a curious question that I don't know at all. How long are the contracts typically with these software? So once you commit to something, how long are you in that, or is that just completely dependent upon your organization and how long you want to commit to it? Because I'm thinking like, this is coming up now, it's coming up for you now, it may come up for you in 2 years, and is there ever going to be a synergy point where it's, all right, at this date, we're all going to procure together,
And we're all going to
just curious.
So, from that perspective, I would say it all depends on how robust a system we want. And coming from a larger system where we were in Richmond, we used a product called other devices. There was the base and it fitted to other systems. If you put other devices, which does speak to others, that system, once you put it on, you're never going to be able to get it. Because it basically integrates on everything you do, from the scheduling software to the signage to everything. And that is very expensive. But it is necessary in larger systems because as software changes, it feeds into it and it speaks that.
It has to update the real-time stops and all that,
Now, do we want to spend that kind of money? I'm not sure. And it may not make sense if it's just 40, but if it's all three of us, it may make sense because it may be cost effective.
So that might come to where the authority might be able to help, because the authority will be able to help for some money, right? Having said that, if you're locked into a contract for 5 years, and I don't know what so you're talking years, it's forever, but I don't know what the contracts do.
Most contracts are, no, we don't have coverage like this. So, but most contracts for us, we have like a 3 to 5 year window with an option to add a couple of years. but it's no longer about 7 ton of our ticket.
I'm not entirely sure what this RP stated, but that's in line with what we would typically do.
So that's fine.
Makes sense. I can't tell you the dates for jobs right now, in this moment, and what I can say is, it's been framed for me more of, the hurdle of, change management issue than it is, either a dollars and cents, or a, operability thing.
All right. Well, we're probably not gonna solve this problem today, but it certainly is something we need to keep in mind and keep on the table as we're putting out RFPs and.
Assuming the RTA goes forward, so that would be part of the MOUs that would have to be created, part, hopefully just a single MOU. Parts of the MOU would need to speak to this issue of interoperability. And, I would envision this RTA kind of evolving over the course of 3 to 5 years. Like, these are our goals for the first year, these are our goals for the second, these are our goals for the third, sort of, assuming all this goes the way we dream.
Right.
Some sort of integration plan, for lack of a better word.
So something to keep in mind as we're going into the future and talking about this. All right.
There was one other thing I was going to say, hopefully it won't lead as much conversation. But it's okay, the conversation's good. The other service, I briefly mentioned, the on-demand service, we are shifting, so currently we actually outsource most of the driving for that through RMC. And this year, through the summer, we are going to be pulling that in-house, kind of using, our vision is to use that as kind of our training ground. You know, we have this long history of student drivers. Of course, you need to get a CDL to drive a transit bus. So what we're hoping to do is by pulling operations, the driving for our UTS, or excuse me, our on-demand service at night, pull that into UTS, UVA employees that kind of, we're creating a hierarchy. So you can start out just driving a car. We actually have 2 Chevy Bolts. We have minivans and we have passenger vans, none of which require a CDL. But you can start driving for us on demand and maybe migrate to fixed route. So that's a transition that we're also focusing on to be able to launch for the fall semester, to have all of our on demand as well as fixed route provided by UTS drivers.
And if no one else has a question, I do. I noticed in the paper or somewhere I read that you all were transitioning somehow or another to electric. Did I see that somewhere?
You certainly did, probably.
Yeah, would you kind of just?
I will say that, yes, we have a contract with Proterra to, we had a contract with Proterra to purchase electric buses and install charging infrastructure. Proterra filed for bankruptcy shortly after I took the position at UVA.
You shouldn't have caused that.
It had nothing to do with me. That has, I think all I can really say at this point is that it's kind of thrown a big monkey wrench into our plans. We are still fully committed to our sustainability goals, fossil free, et cetera, and we just need to reevaluate where we land on that.
That's fair.
And I'll promise an update at a future meeting.
Great. Any other questions? All right. Okay. You look like you might have a question. Okay.
Just my face.
Lucas. Update?
Update for me?
Yeah.
Oh, regarding what?
Well, I was you look like you might have something.
Oh,
to say.
That's just his face.
All right, sounds
Well, he's
good.
not on the agenda.
It was that line item that I was.
He's not
All
the
right.
reminder.
Then we'll go back to Garland with Kathy. And Charlottesville schools too.
Sure. So a couple things. We provided a recommendation to City Council regarding our alternative fuel study, which is a requirement for us from FTA that we go through the study and get to a place where there's a recommendation so we can get a transition plan written. We made a presentation, I believe, there's some robust conversation
I think there's gonna be more conversation, with council. And with that, then we'll have, a direction. What was recommended in our study though was kind of a dual approach with 2 pilots. One was BEV and one was, hydrogen fuel cell. Both of them would be, limited to between 3 to 5 vehicles. And then that way we'd be able to test the model. We already have secured funding from the state and FDA to get 2 BEV buses ordered. We can do that within the next, we'll probably do that within the next 60 days. We're just waiting on the final, we're programming the money right now. So as soon as that clears, then we'll be able to order the vehicles. It takes us between 18 to 24 months to order the vehicles anyway, so we got a little time. But there's a whole host of decisions that have to be worked out. We need additional space. There's a piece of property that's adjacent to that we need to acquire to make all of this happen. So that's the next piece that we'll have to have conversations with the city council about. Making that happen to get whatever fuel source we're gonna do done. We've also secured money to do improvements to the facilities, adding 2 bays to support the alternative fuel vehicles, and support and money to do upgrades to our administrative building. Actually building a new building to support administration. We're also, I got great news to talk about in regards to microtransit, the microcat project for Albemarle County. I actually literally just left a meeting with the providers. Our numbers are growing. We clipped the milestone. We're over 100 riders a day. Last 2 days, we've been 106 and 103. So we're starting to pick up. That's without any major advertisement that is coming. So you will hear radio ads, print ads, we're working there, and we're seeing if we can, still within the budget, get some television commercials out fairly soon. That will also, we're also getting more calls from individuals in the region who are outside of that area, and they wanna know, when are we gonna expand the model? Already they wanna know that, so there's a conversation that needs to happen. There's a study that needs to happen that would support the idea. We've been working, having conversations. The TJPDC was the initial organization that started that. We would go back through them, get them to revisit that, and then look at what areas would expand that. So whether it makes sense to do portions of downtown or all of downtown, potentially even adding some of them around the university. We need to figure out what that looks like. That is the next major step as we talk. We want to make microcat more regional.
So would you just explain to people in case they don't know where microcat is actually running and why you're talking about the region? Because, yeah.
So right now, the original study was from TJPDC. There was 3 zones they were looked at. There was the Canton zone, that looked at Martha Jefferson Hospital. They came to the city edge, the city line. The 29 zone, which basically took in just above where the high school is, but now we've added the high school into the zone all the way to the airport, up on 29, so the 29 North. The connection right now, you can go between the 2 zones, but you can't stop in the city. So you can go through the city, but you won't be able to stop. That's where people are having a conversation about, they see the vans go through, they want to know if they can get on, or can the individuals that are there, can they get off in the city? And right now, that's not the way the model is working. That's not to say that in the future that it couldn't, but that's not the way the original project was funded, and we were working through it. We had 6 vehicles. We're up to, I think, 5 vehicles at peak right now. The 6th one will probably roll out in the next 2 to 3 weeks. Now that we're getting up over 100, so the numbers are growing faster, as fast as we had hoped they would. And hopefully, it'll grow quicker once we do the advertising, so. I'm hopeful, we're at a number where we thought we would be on the conservative side of around it. But I believe we could probably double that number.
So questions? Or, yes, Mike?
You talked about how we're getting your requests that are out of area. Do we actually have any solid data capture on those requests?
Absolutely, we know exactly where those individuals are calling from. VIA does a wonderful job, they track where the requests are coming from, and they can tell us whether they're in the zone or out of the zone.
And I would just add that in addition to the city, there are other urban Albemarle County areas that should be in the zone too. So don't leave that out.
That would be part of the study, we would add as many as we can.
Yeah, I'm just saying though, as we're looking at it, you know, any thoughts? Yes.
Garland, do you have a sense of how many of the riders are people with disabilities? Which is different than the number of rides in the disabled vehicle, which I do.
The report actually shows that.
Because at least one of the cars.
Well, actually, it does, because it'll flag and say whether it means.
You have to request the disabled vehicles. Now, when I took it, I got one, and it was awesome because it's extra big. But, I mean, really, like, I put my bike in the back, it was great. But certainly for understanding what this thing is for, like who's using it now is really important.
Yeah, we can see that. I was trying to think of the reporting database that we get a chance to see. I just would have to flag it as wheelchair accessible pickups.
Yeah, I mean, I've used it, it's awesome, it's so easy.
Yeah. I'm not saying that's the only one, but that would be a way of trying to get us at a number. That may not be the whole number, because not everybody who has a disability needs a wheelchair accessible van.
Right.
So it would be nice for this group at some point to get some data when you're ready. It may be a little soon yet for that, but.
Well, no, so access has been made available to the county. Kevin and Abby both have it, but we can do a presentation.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Why don't we plan on that in the next one or two?
Sure.
That'd be great. Any other questions about? Yes.
To comment on the microcat, congratulations. First of all, I have not had a chance to use it yet, but I've heard great things and glad to hear you're meeting goals. I've certainly seen the vehicles up around the northern urban ring where I often shop and recreate. And I know you can't control the earned media that you've been getting. There's been good stories in progress and WINA and everything. But one thing when I hear them talk about microcat, they tend to just talk about the 29 North corridor, which makes it sound like you can just go from Barracks Road, or you don't get to Barracks Road, from Fashion Square to the airport. And it doesn't talk about how many more services you can reach all the neighborhoods around that area. So that's just a comment, if you can, as much as possible, that we can make sure people understand the east and west part of that northern corridor that can be reached. And a question also just broadly on CAT, my favorite question. Do you have any update on the route adjustments that have been approved?
We knew that was coming.
Yeah. So we are making progress on getting more drivers. We're still short. We're making some progress on getting our vehicles repaired. It's still not fast enough. We've spent a lot of time on some vehicles. You've heard me say in the past, we bought some hybrid vehicles. They worked very well the first 6 years we've had them. In the last few years, they have been extremely challenging to keep them up and running, to say the least. The first goal of mine is to get rid of those, get the number of miles on them so we can get. I'm saying all this to say, even if we wanted to add the service, I don't have the vehicles to add the service. I don't have the drivers to add the service yet. Trying to get us back to where we were pre-pandemic has been extremely challenging. We don't have the number of vehicles, we don't have the number of drivers. Hopefully we get more drivers as a part of our budget submission for FY25. And then I have, last part is, I had an interview with a guy today that I believe is going to be able to help Kat if we are able to get him coming in as our assistant director of transit for maintenance and facilities. He got FTA experience, worked at a couple of properties. He has fleet management experience also. So that would be extremely helpful to us. He's been very good at developing mechanics, putting a development program in place. It's now figuring out whether we can afford him and get him in the house. But I say all that to say we're working on it. I want to put that out as fast as we can. I've had a conversation with the city manager about that specific thing. As soon as I can, we're going to give you service.
Ready when you are. There's not just the center, there's several routes that have been approved, not just to reach into the center of Belvedere. Thank you.
I actually have one more question, sorry. So we were just talking about connected services and interoperability of platforms. And I am now reminded, oh yes, we have built CAT on a backbone of VIA, which I imagine is very territorial as a for-profit company. Can you help us understand, as we're looking to scale both as we're considering scaling MicroCat and also looking to scale and interconnect the region, what some of the consequences of that bargain might be?
Consequences of not doing what?
Consequences of working with VIA as a private company to deliver MicroCat.
It's only so in the larger transit world, the VIA model is one that's heavily used because it helps us contain costs. What I mean by that is if the vendor starts to get too expensive, we put an RFP out, we get another one, and make it work so we keep our cost model down. We control it by managing them well and managing the process as well. As we expand, I don't see why they would, from the public, they don't know it's VIA, they think it's CAT, it is CAT. We are managing that situation. Anything happens, they call, and I get a report, or I'm directly connected to the operations manager and to their national office. We were on call the other night in the storm house. I am on call in the storm house, so I need to get more information because I kind of left them out a little bit on a couple of things, but that was my fault. But managing that situation is CAT's responsibility. So the region doesn't know anything different than its CAT operator.
So the contract with VIA was 2 years? I'm just trying to.
It's a 2-year contract with an option for a third. Yes.
Okay.
If I could add that, this was a part of an overall grant process that had a lot of assessment around the model, how it would be implemented. And the decision to go and do third party was done through collaboration with the city and county. That approach was presented to the board of supervisors, and that really led the direction for us to do an RFP. That RFP resulted in several applicants. VIA was hands down the top candidate for their scale, their operations, performance feedback, cost, efficiency. And so they had all the metrics, but just to remind the body that this is a pilot, and that the county will be covering the full cost next year of this 2-year service, and that's a decision that the county, the board, and the team will have to wrestle with on what that looks like moving forward. So it is a pilot. There's decisions that can be made around how it would continue, but it was a very thorough and I thought well-vetted process, and what resulted in the company that we have now.
And some of the monies came from DRPT.
The first year was somewhere around 75% funded.
And then Albemarle County, so it was a combination of DRPT and Albemarle County funding. And I couldn't remember if the contract was 2 years or 3 years. But
It's 2 with an option for the third, just in case.
does that help? Any other comments or questions? We're thrilled that it's doing so well. That's great.
I do have something, no reports, but I do have a question. I thought I read something about hydrogen as being part of something coming out of the alternative fuel study. One, is that accurate? And 2, it surprised me a little bit because when we did ours, it sounded like one of the big challenges, it sounded very appealing, one of the big challenges was supply. And so I was interested to know if there's been a breakthrough on supply that maybe we didn't know about 6-12 months ago, that could be of note, or if it's maybe not as realistic as it
No, it's
sounds.
real. It's very real. So, the federal government, has listed these hydrogen, supply sites. One of them is in the Appalachian, or actually West Virginia area. I think it's, I want to say pretty, where is it?
West Virginia.
There you go. West Virginia, and then the other one is West Virginia.
Delaware area.
West Virginia somewhere. There's also.
There's one in like Philly, Delaware area as well.
So there's 2 sites that are going to be fairly close to us within 4 to 6 hours of drive. So it is a realistic possibility of having hydrogen as a fuel source now. West Coast has been using it for years. There's a transit agency, we were trying to set up a tour to take some council if they wanted to go to AC Transit in
Montgomery County.
well, no, well, first we were talking about going to AC Transit, which was in Oakland, California, and then we noticed that there was a closer example, which was Montgomery County, Maryland.
It's a lot closer.
Much closer. But they're building their model, so it's not, they don't have it yet, so they're building their model.
It was a difference I noticed when I read this in the timing of how you were purchasing those for the pilots.
Correct, so the first pilot would start with the purchase. We put the order in, if we can get in quicker, we may get it sooner, but it's usually 18 months for a vehicle to arrive for us. So we would order 2 battery electric, whatever is on the state contract right now, and I think the state contract has pulled Patera off the state contract list. Sorry. So it's Gillig and New Flyer that are on the list at this point in time. So we would make a decision between those 2, order the 2, and then work with the team to get the infrastructure built out by the time the 2 got here to support charging. On the hydrogen side, the hydrogen vehicles are about $100,000 more expensive than the battery electric ones, which, by the way, battery electric vehicles are about $1.2 million a piece. And so that means hydrogen is about 1.3 million. And if we were to get those, the timeline on that is roughly the same, it's roughly about 20 months to get it, not 18, it's 20 to 24 months, is what we're being told. And that gives us plenty of time to build out our hydrogen infrastructure.
Big numbers we're talking about.
We're talking about huge numbers. Did I miss anything, Ben?
What you got?
All right. I just wanted to let Ben and the team, so it was that effort of trying to get battery electric or getting us to a zero emission has not just been a CAT effort. Neighborhood Development Services, which has been where Ben is housed, the Office of Sustainability has been in this. We've also had conversations with other transit agencies all around. Kimberly Horn, who's our consultant on this, they have brought in experts from the West Coast. John Jackson, he's also the planning manager for the state's, what is it called? The state transition optimization?
Yes.
Alternative fuel transition? Yes. So he's the point person there, so same consultant firm. We have an engineer that working with Arlington. So we brought in the right team to pull this thing off.
So it goes back to, again, money.
Lots of it.
And the authority. And my understanding is, and correct me if I'm wrong, but if we figure out the governance model and get an authority up and running and figure out how we're going to pay for some of this, the authority can put money towards both capital and operational.
Absolutely.
Just to sort of.
But another thing about the funding is that the city only pays 4% of those bus costs.
Potentially. It all depends on,
If it works out.
right, so
So they're already
Yeah,
in.
yeah.
depending on the
yeah,
grant that
yeah.
we get. So if it's normal allocation, it's 4%, but if they grant specific one, it could be higher. It could be 10%, it could be 20%. But right now, we're going through our normal allocation and it's only 4%.
Yeah, so hopefully we're not spending 1.2 for
Yeah,
this.
but I'm just saying that's where the funding would come from, hopefully, if we get
We're
an
not,
authority
yeah,
going. Yes.
the vehicle is, yeah, we're only paying 4% of the 1.2 million. But we gotta figure out whether we can get the same, 4%, deal on the infrastructure side.
Okay, yeah,
I'm not sure.
yeah, interesting. So the infrastructure and the vehicles themselves.
Two different.
Right, gotcha, interesting. Great conversation. Any other questions?
During school.
Oh, yes, schools.
Yes, we cleared our wait list, so. And hopefully, we can improve from where we are in concert with schools in the future. So we'll be prepared by this time, by August of this year to see you carry more students. But we gotta add drivers to do that. We need to do that now because that's how you prep, because it's 4 to 6 months of training.
All right. With that, if there are no more questions, then I'm going to go to Mike for John. Update from John.
I guess I would start by saying, it's January. And if you're smarter than me, which isn't that hard to do, and somebody asks you to come run a transit agency, tell them I'll be there in May. Because, you know, week 1, 2, and 3 with the snow is not super exciting for me as the new guy. But all kidding aside, you know, it's been a busy few weeks here this new year. There's a lot to do at JAUNT, both internally and externally, with policies, practices, relationships. I expect to post 8 roles next week because there are places where coverage is bare. And we have plans for a new work chart in place. And so there's going to be a hiring phase happening. And we're trying to create a place that's, you know, a desirable place to be, a great place to work. And so there's a lot of attention on that internal stuff. For this group, more with that external focus. There's several studies in place and a grant award that we were just notified about the other day. So we're looking at electrification in an implementation phase study. We already did all the feasibility. Katie knows that we're thinking about this in enough of a serious way in a follow-up to our TDP that we're wondering, you know, is now the time? Do we have enough of the data to start putting this into our capital program? Because the capital program requests are due to the RPT 1 week from today. So for example, one of our recommendations would be pilot this with one of the connect routes. Well, if that's the case, it's impossible with our current infrastructure because all we have is 2 of those slow chargers on site. We would need a fast charger in addition to the vehicle, right? So there are some obstacles that would need to be overcome in order to enact these next steps. Outside of electrification, we've also got a rural transit needs study with the folks from CIRCOM and North Dakota State. I'm pretty sure it's North Dakota, not South Dakota. Lucas is getting my report. See, he was going to get the report sooner or later. Thank goodness. I met with those folks just the other day, and those of you who are part of that process, you can expect a March meeting based on that conversation with Jeremy. We also have a micro-transit study underway. You know, I'm really interested in what's happening and focused more on this community collaboration piece. I know that my predecessor was invested in expanding, particularly with one vendor, perhaps, you know, I want to figure out what works best from a community perspective. More to come on that. And then finally, I would say that the state, the Dominion Power actually, was awarded, $1.5 million roughly for something called Project Sync the other day. JAUNT was one of the early collaborators with that. And there are 4 or 5 other agencies, and I have folks from Dominion that I'll meet with next week to find out how we can be a part of that. And that is potentially a funding source, not just from the planning side, but also in looking at where would some key infrastructure go that's out in the world, right? You know, as opposed to infrastructure that's just at base operations.
Yeah, it's interesting.
That's it.
That was a lot of good updates today. Any questions from Mike? Sure. All right, Katie, DRPT.
Yeah, I will definitely second we're really excited about the new Dominion Department of Energy grant, because that does have planning and on route in the service area, charging infrastructure, which is really exciting. And then on the rail side, I think since our last meeting, the rail team was successful into FRA Corridor ID grant for to study passenger rail on the Commonwealth Corridor, which is the east-west passenger rail corridor, and the newly named Western Corridor, which is DC to Bristol, so both of which pass through Charlottesville in their service area. So we will likely have a web page up on that with more information as work gets started. And then the Virginia Breeze route, the stop in Charlottesville is moving from Barrick Shopping Center to the Alderman Drive, which goes to Williams. And then the Virginia Breeze I-64 corridor needs assessment is concluding in the next several weeks, and then we'll have a draft by the end of the month. Some more information on that, including 2 route expansions that would include Charlottesville. And then kind of the big one is that our grant cycle is on February 1st, closing. That's for operating capital or any special projects, so definitely a busy time.
Plus the session is happening right now.
Yes, yeah.
Which always adds another level, right? Any questions for Kate?
Yeah, really small one. You said the east-west was called the Commonwealth Corridor.
Yeah.
Does the DC Bristol have a name?
The Western Corridor.
Western.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Okay. Any other questions for Kate? All right. I guess that takes care of the updates. A lot of good information today. So we'll move to TJPDC staff updates.
Yeah,
It looks like, Sandy, you're first on the list.
Yeah, I was hoping Curtis would still be here for this item because he's really the manager for the Safe Streets and Roads for All. But the TJPDC, for those of you who are new, or maybe just those of you who need a reminder, we received a federal grant through the US DOT for the Safe Streets and Roads for All program. And the goal of this program is to look at ways where we as a region can commit to reducing serious injuries and fatalities related to roadway crashes. So we got commitment from all 6 of our jurisdictions. We've been working with a consultant team on getting the project launched and moving forward. And our first major event was held earlier this month. We had a regional summit where we invited stakeholders from all 6 of our jurisdictions to come and meet together and talk about maybe where the concerns are, what challenges there are, and maybe communicating or getting buy-in to move forward with projects, and then who the essential stakeholders are that need to be engaged in this process. So we're looking forward to moving forward on the next step, which is going to be to go to each of the jurisdictions to seek a commitment to participating in the study and setting a target to reduce roadway fatalities and serious injuries. So we'll be seeing all of you at your locality meetings here in the next month. Do you want me to just keep going, Diantha?
Well, let me make sure there are any questions. Just make sure no one has any
Did that
questions.
summit come up with any recommendations?
There was a lot of information that was received. I think the consultant team is going to be processing all of those, but it wasn't like we need to do these, like it wasn't necessarily developing strategies. It was really helping inform how do we engage the public well, and what are the concerns that that group was already aware of that they thought needed to be at least part of the discussion. Yeah. The recommendations will come at the end of the planning process. Yeah.
We'll get some way eventually.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
Long-range transportation plan, Sandy?
Yep, just want to give you a brief update. So the MPO is working through the long-range transportation plan. We need to have the plan adopted by May. So it feels like we've been doing a lot of behind-the-scenes work, but we've been processing a lot of data, receiving a lot of public feedback, and we're ready to put all of this information together and start identifying the projects that we are going to be prioritizing. So again, for those of you that maybe have a little bit less familiarity, one of the really important things that the long-range transportation plan does is it allows the urbanized area, the MPO area, to identify their priority transportation improvements that they want to potentially be seeking funding for over the next several rounds. And one of the reasons that this is important is because demonstration of the regional commitment to a lot of these projects is required as an initial eligibility step in order to receive funding for projects. So we have all our data that we've gone through as far as our needs prioritization. We have the public feedback. We have a couple of other data sources that we're going to pull in regarding safety needs and areas where we know that the system capacity is going to be limited in the future, in places where there are going to be constraints, and we're going to the MPO staff is going to be working with locality staff to start a sort of matching. Where are there concerns that we've identified, and what projects do we have lined up that can help meet those needs? We also want to make sure that we are including any high priority projects that the localities have already identified and making sure that those are feeding into the plan. And then we also want to identify where there may be some concerns that have very clearly been indicated that we don't have a good solution for or the right solution for yet, and make sure that we're identifying those for planning priorities moving forward.
And it just occurs to me, I don't want to put anybody on the spot, but I know that we were talking about the changes that were going to happen to Smart Scale. And I think they have finally decided, so those now, the criteria for Smart Scale funding is now firmed up, and we know exactly what the criteria
Yeah,
is.
she can give you a brief update, because they made a vote, and then they voted again.
Exactly, and they changed it again.
Yeah.
So that's why I mention it.
Do you want me to go through those?
Could you do it in a quick, just real high?
Yeah.
Because we all said, okay, this is the vote, and then I saw it come across and it said, oh, well, they went back and changed their mind.
Yeah, so the first discussion was there are different scoring criteria. So the way Smart Scale works is it's a competitive process. You submit your applications and it's scored against another number of factor areas. That includes economic development, safety, congestion mitigation, we'll see if I can remember them all, land use, environmental factors, and accessibility. So one of the big discussion items was regarding, and the one that they changed their mind and flip-flopped a little bit back and forth on, was land use. Land use as a benefit score is really kind of measuring where a project is located, and is it helping to connect things that are in close proximity to each other. So it's kind of a measurement of density, but one of the purposes of the land use scoring measure is to incentivize what they refer to as transportation efficient land use, meaning supporting like good growth management strategies. And the types of projects that got a lot of benefit points from land use were bicycle and pedestrian projects and transit projects. And one of the concerns that had come up is that a lot of the funding that was identified as wanting to be put towards or being prioritized for high priority projects was going to some of these projects that were considered to have smaller levels of impact. And so there was an effort to kind of recalibrate the program to make sure that the land use score wasn't driving so much of the project selection. So in December, the CTB voted to eliminate land use as a scoring measure completely. And then there was some concern that maybe that was not in compliance with some of the regulations that were written into the smart scale policies. And so in January, they went back and reversed that decision. Land use is still going to carry less weight than it did because it is now a multiplier, which is what was originally proposed by the OIB staff when they were reviewing the project guidelines. The other major changes are to the types of projects that are going to be eligible for the high priority program funding. So there are two funding pots with Smart Scale. There's the high priority program funding, which is competitive statewide, and then there's funding that's dedicated to each of the each of the VDOT construction districts, which is a smaller pot of money. And so there were some additional restrictions put on the types of projects that would qualify for receiving that statewide money. And most of those projects are really intended to be capacity improvement projects or really major projects. So things like new lanes, access management projects, interchange improvements. Help me out, Katie. I forget the exact language, but it's like new corridors for freight and rail.
Yeah, and I know for transit specifically, it's like more BRT, really high capacity transit, moving away from just one smaller fixed route.
Fixed guideway transit. And then the other one that they added that wasn't discussed prior to the December meeting was a set of improvements, as long as it includes all of the preferred alternatives that were identified in a VDOT supported project. So VDOT supports different like corridor studies and things like that. If any one of those improvements in that corridor study doesn't meet one of those other requirements, that would make the project eligible for the high priority program. If you submit all of the recommendations that were identified together as one project, that could qualify as a project. So the other thing I'll mention is that when we're talking about what it qualifies to receive funding through the high priority program, you're talking about the principal improvement or the main sort of project that can receive funding. You can add other elements to it. So you can do an interchange improvement with a shared use path or something like that, but you wouldn't necessarily be able to receive high priority funding for just the shared use path.
Well, you did a great job. Thank you
Off the
very
fly.
much.
You're welcome.
And I really appreciate it. So the bottom line is the criteria changed, but we now have it locked in, and we know what the criteria is because we're not going to get smart scale funding if we can't match up the criteria with our projects and our projects with criteria. So that's good. Okay.
Yep.
All right. Thank you. Then the tip update.
Yeah, so just very quickly again, we reviewed this at the MPO policy board meeting last night. The tip is sort of the schedule of federal funding allocations within the MPO area. So any adjustments, it's a document that's approved by the MPO, and any changes, if they exceed a certain level, also have to be approved by the MPO. So there are just a couple of these bigger changes that I wanted to mention to you. The first one is that we added a project into the tip regarding some capital improvements to the CAT facility. Do you want to say anything about those, Garland?
There you go.
So we got two projects that are on our radar. One is facility improvements to the maintenance. We're adding 2 bays to support alternative vehicles. And then the second one is a major upgrade to our administrative building. We're actually proposing to add a new building for expansion. And the existing building, we would do some reprogramming, and that would become the training facility. So we've actually got money from the state to do the NEPA and 30% design on both of those. So they hopefully, as soon as we get our project manager hired, we'll be moving forward with NEPA and 30% design.
And then the other amendment that I'll mention to you all is that we also had to add in the federal funding that has been allocated for the TJPDC's mobility management program. And that's probably a good segue over to Lucinda's update.
You're on, Lucinda.
Yeah, so the mobility management program started to be funded in October, and we secured a partnership with JABA, the Jefferson Area Board for Aging, to provide the services. And we're starting a call center so that somebody can call in and help get like a transportation counselor who will walk them through the steps. We'll refer to the transit agencies first, CAT and JAUNT, and then continue kind of down the list of public providers, trying to help them find something that works for them. So we're open for services now, starting in January, and we have an 800 number and a temporary website and staff, and so we're starting to take some calls. We also have a data system set up to collect all the data. And currently I'm working on a proposal for funding for fiscal year 2025. And we'll ask for another staff member for half of that year, so we'll continue to grow slowly.
Right, any questions about it? Yeah.
Yeah, I would just add to that, I happen to have the pleasure to present to the Fluvanna Board of Supervisors last night. Hal heard this presentation as well. And so the folks at Java were out there talking about your partnership, and I will tell you that that local board of supervisors is really interested in connecting folks out there.
Yeah. Imagine that's great. All right. Any other comments or questions? Then that is it. We're on to other business. Does anybody have any other business they want to look at?
Chair McKeel, I have something really
Sure.
quick. Last night there was a VDOT open house program on a proposed park and ride facility in Crozet. And so, in case anyone wasn't aware of it, I wanted to let you know that they are still accepting comments on that through February 5th, and they can be through the mail, through email, and I have contact information if anyone would like to submit any comments on that proposed park and ride lot.
And would you like to share where it is?
Yes, so it is pretty close, right off of 64 at exit 107. You do come down 250 and then into, let's see, I always forget the name of the road.
Is it Patterson Mill?
It is, yes, Patterson Mill Lane. And so it is just, a couple quick turns and then you're right there. They will have proposed parking, obviously, as well as bike facilities, and then it will be a proposed transit stop for the Acton Express. And I know John is also potentially looking at that for some of their connect, or in the conversations for that. So there will be a separate area or circle for transit and then parking over here to make it really easy for pedestrians to be out of the way and nice and safe. So they have some really great schematics and drawings out for that.
And where can we find that?
So that is through the VDOT information, and I can actually give you a piece of paper regarding that. Thank you.
So the bike is great to hear, because that's the problem we had at Crozet at one point when we were doing the community, and the way for folks to leave their bikes or
Yes,
make
yes,
sure
so
their
they did have
So that's
a
great.
facility specifically
That's great.
racks for that.
Good to hear.
Was it just racks or was it like covered protected bike storage?
I believe it is just racks that was on the illustrations that were there last night.
Thanks.
I have one other thing.
Oh, sure.
So, correct me if I'm wrong, make sure I get the dates right. So, we're at a point where in our transit strategic plan, we're completed basically chapters 1, 2, and 3. We're at a point now where we should be able to make an update. We need to make an update to City Council. We also think it's appropriate to make an update to this group. So just to figure out when it makes sense to do that, probably April. So
working with Lucinda, and she's writing this down.
April, hopefully we get in front of council in February, March. So we're probably getting in front of council in March, and then this group in April. But that'll be necessary before we start the final components to shore up the required completion of our transit strategic plan in time for our deadline of June 30th of this year. So
we're almost there.
Right. All right, anybody else with other business? I have one thing just to remind folks, and I said this at the last meeting, but I'll remind everybody again. So as you all remember, VDOT worked on and completed the grade separated interchange at Rio. And when they finished that, they moved down to hydraulic. And so the paid-for projects at hydraulic are now under construction. There's work going on. Shovels will be going into the ground pretty soon, not quite yet. They're working on utilities right now. And everybody needs to be aware, a roundabout is going in Whole Foods, so that we'll have a roundabout there. As soon as that roundabout is completed, then we'll move up and a roundabout will go in up by Stonefield. So we'll have 2 roundabouts. And there will be some restrictions. You won't be able to go down hydraulic towards 29 and make a left at some point. That will change. You'll have to use the roundabouts. As everybody probably knows here, the hydraulic intersection is one of the most dangerous in the state. The problem is for pedestrians and vehicles, and many of the crashes were T-bones from people making left-hand turns onto 29 and heading north. Extremely dangerous. That's what they're trying to help with. Having said that, the good news for this particular group is that a pedestrian bridge will also be going over 29 that will connect the Albemarle County Stonefield corner to the Charlottesville corner where the old Kmart used to be. It's the best way for me to describe it right now. So we'll have a pedestrian bicycle bridge that will go across, and both sides will have transit stops. And the transit stops will be pull-ins so that the buses will not be stopping on 29 in the middle of traffic, which is really good. So that work is beginning, and happy, you can go onto the VDOT website where they have the projects, and they have a lot of information about that project up there already. But I just wanted to remind people, because you may have questions from people about what in the world is going on Hydraulic Road right now. But, and unless there are any other comments or questions or business, you all usually don't mind if I adjourn us early. So hearing no objections, our next meeting is February the 22nd, same place, same time, and have a lovely month.
Thanks for
All right.
stepping up.